If you're a therapist and you've ever walked out of a session thinking, was that okay? Did I do it right? Was that enough? Or, laying in bed late at night, wondering if you said the wrong thing, or dissecting the situation, worrying that you missed something or that maybe you made a mistake. I want you to know that you are not alone in this experience. I think every conscientious therapist, including myself, has felt this way, sometimes more than once. And it's part of the experience. But also, here is the truth. Sometimes when our performance anxiety is running rampant, that actually becomes a bigger risk to the clinical work than our perhaps like lack of knowledge. Our need to be good, our desire to do a good job, while very well intentioned, can actually create problems. It can create problems for ourselves, obviously, because we're anxious wrecks, but it can also impact our client outcomes. And the scariest thing is that if we don't have a lot of visibility into this, it can actually and paradoxically lead us into situations that might become ethically questionable. So that is why we are talking about this today. Therapist performance anxiety, what it is, how it shows up, how it can start to scramble your judgment and make you do things that maybe you shouldn't, and also how, if left unchecked, it can lead you to make choices that are not just ineffective, but actually unethical. We're going there today. So, if this is your first time tuning in, I'm so glad you're here. I'm Dr. Lisa Marie Boppy. This is Love, Happiness, and Success for Therapists. Like you, I am a therapist. I'm a psychologist and a marriage and family therapist. I'm also a very proud board-certified coach. I am a clinical supervisor. I'm the founder of Growing Self Counseling and Coaching. And over the years, I have supported so many therapists who care so deeply. And time again, I have seen them run right into this wall of caring so much that they become so anxious that they can start behaving in ways that are going to create problems. So that's why we're talking about it today, because I feel like this is something that doesn't get discussed enough in clinical training, certainly, sometimes even in clinical supervision or among colleagues, and that is anxiety. And, not necessarily the kind of anxiety that clients bring in. That can be different. It's not necessarily like a diagnosable condition or rising to the significance of a generalized anxiety disorder. But, just this like low grade, was this enough? Am I okay? Worried? Am I doing this right? Am I doing something wrong? It tells you, maybe I'm not helping enough. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Or maybe my worth and my value as a therapist depends on my clients benefiting from what we're doing. And certainly, as an ethical therapist, you always need to keep an eye on beneficence. Like, is this actually helping my clients? And it's okay if it is not, but we need to do something with that. So, you do need to be kind of tracking that metric. But when it turns into, I need my clients to be making progress because if they don't, that means something about me and my worth as a therapist, perhaps even my worth as a human, like that is a problem. And also, there can be other types of anxieties that come up for therapists that are super real, like especially if you're a clinician in private practice and you are operating under your own steam. You don't get a paycheck. You earn a living when clients keep coming, right? It can turn into fears around, if I'm not good enough, if I'm not doing something right, if I'm not good at this, clients will leave. They won't come back. They'll get mad at me. They'll judge me. They'll leave a bad review. Or, also if they leave and I'm not doing a good job, I will have difficulty supporting myself because especially in a private practice environment, clients vote with their feet. And so I think that there's some validity to that, but that can create this fearful scarcity mindset related to money and finances with therapists sometimes that adds fuel to that fire. And so this is the kind of anxiety that therapists struggle with on a daily basis, and it can really start to impact the decisions that we make as therapists, particularly when we don't have a lot of awareness around it. This is not conscious. This is deep. This is subconscious many times. We don't know that this is going on inside of us, and therefore we just react without realizing what we're doing or why. So to get some visibility in this for your benefit, let me tell you a story about a therapist named Sarah. You know a Sarah. You might be a Sarah. I might be a Sarah, okay? But Sarah she's smart. She's compassionate. She is well-trained, well-qualified. She has the degrees and the credentials, and she's taken the post-grad trainings. And a lot of this comes from the fact that she really wants to do a good job. She's not just working for gold stars. She really wants her work to be meaningful, to be valuable. She got into this career because she cares. That's part of her life's mission, is to help other people. And in service of that, Sarah works hard, maybe a little bit too hard, to make sure that she is helping. And this is noble intentions right here with Sarah, but it's where does that balance come into play between caring enough versus maybe caring too much versus maybe having so much tied up in this that it starts to make you a weirdo. It happens, right? And understandable. What was going on with Sarah is that Sarah had a lot of anxiety on a few different axes, by the way. It just wasn't one type of anxiety. One of these was that she was really afraid of doing harm, certainly, missing a detail, somebody gets hurt, somebody makes a suicide attempt, and that is a good thing. But she was also afraid of letting people down, not being good enough, not being a talented therapist, right? Because of that fear, she would sometimes start doing things in session reactively that were not actually based on her client's needs, paradoxically, but on her own need to feel like she's doing it right and getting positive feedback from her clients that it is working for them. And this would show up in a number of different ways. Sarah had stuff attached to her clients making progress. And so sometimes this would lead her to push clients kind of moving too fast, right? That pushing people to, go deep before they were ready or shift perspective before they had kind of worked up to that. And certainly pushing clients into perhaps taking action, one, without understanding an evidence-based coaching model that is designed to help you generate that kind of motion in therapy clients, but kind of wanting her clients to grow and evolve and change and sort of take their insight and translate it into outcomes in their life in a way that wasn't really in alignment with how fast her clients could go or should go. And it wasn't based on what the clients needed, but she needed to see movement to be able to tell herself okay, it's working. I'm doing a good job. And when her clients were feeling sort of stuck or in a different place in the work, that was hard for Sarah to tolerate sometimes. But this shows up in other ways too. Sarah would also do a thing where she would move too slow. She would because she did not want people to be upset with her. She didn't want to do something wrong or to have clients frustrated with her, because she's also worried about money, right? She would sometimes move too slow. She would get stuck in like just processing and like unpacking, rehashing, interpreting, because she was worried about directing the session, making a mistake, doing therapy wrong. She was waiting for clients to lead to the point that nobody was leading sometimes, because her clients were waiting for her to be like, okay, here's the plan, right? I mean, like, they're paying her for her expertise, right? Like, well, the therapist don't know what to do. And if she wants me to keep talking about my mom's reaction to XYZ, there must be a reason for it. But sometimes there wasn't. Sarah was like, this felt like a comfortable space for Sarah, the unpacking, the unfolding, the interpreting, and also sometimes not always in alignment with what her clients really wanted or needed. Another thing that Sarah would frequently do that you might relate to, I know I have done this particularly earlier in my career, is that Sarah would, in moments where clients maybe seem kind of stuck, or particularly if they express some kind of hope, like, when is this going to start to work? Like, how long is this going to take? Or why isn't this changing for me yet? Sarah would feel a lot of anxiety. It felt like a statement about what she was doing in a way that would, like, brought up stuff for her. And so that would lead her to start sort of reactively, session to session, bringing in something different every week, a different intervention from a different model. She would rationalize to herself, I'm just eclectic, right? But it was very much a reaction to what a client was bringing up week to week, as opposed to a coherent, cohesive conceptualization that was rooted in a clear model. Right? So there wasn't consistency. There wasn't an arc. Sarah was kind of like lurching all over the place. Whereas to be able to hold the course, understand a model deeply, be able to use that with your clients in an organized way, it guides the work effectively. We as a therapist have a clear plan for like how this is going to help my client move to their goal. And I think it is different, certainly. So therapists who are doing clinical mental health treatment to have a clear treatment plan, and this is the model I use, and this is the symptoms that my client is experiencing, and how is this going to help them, get to a better place and feel better and be able to function in a more healthy way. And also therapists who specialize in non-clinical presenting issues, clients coming in wanting to figure themselves out or make positive changes in life or improve their relationship or get on a better trajectory with their career. That is served by an evidence-based coaching psychology framework that helps clients understand where they are, where they want to go, and the actions that will get them from A to Z, while managing internal and external obstacles all along the way. But in order to use any of these kinds of models, it requires a clinician to have confidence in the model, but also a fair amount of confidence in themselves. So if they start, getting reactive and being like, oh, this isn't working, I'm going to do something else, all of a sudden they're going in one direction, then another direction, and the client's confused. Sooner or later, the therapist is confused. And the big paradox here is that a client is like, this isn't working. I'm not sure this person does know what they're doing. And maybe I need to figure out something else, which is paradoxically, again, Sarah's worst nightmare. But it's not because she wasn't a great therapist. It was because she believed that she wasn't a great therapist. She had anxiety telling her that, and she was acting from anxiety as opposed to a wise mind. So this is something that happens all the time. Like, I see this as a clinical supervisor, particularly with clinicians earlier in their career or clinicians who are expanding into a professional niche that is newer for them. Like, stuff comes up. Now, there is another very real type of anxiety that clinicians in private practice face. And I alluded to this a bit at the beginning of this podcast, but this is worthy of additional exploration. And that is financial anxiety and insecurity, particularly for clinicians in private practice who are operating outside of the medical model, meaning that they aren't dependent on third-party payers, aka insurance companies, to be paying for the services of their clients. I think that there is less anxiety for clinicians who are paneled in network with different insurance companies because, the way that model works is that you have a conveyor belt, a steady stream of therapy clients coming to you from health insurance companies. And when a client gets matched with you and their schedule matches yours, they're so relieved. They're like, I'm in, we're doing this. And I think that that does add some layers of security for clinicians in that type of business model. But it's a totally different game for clinicians who are seeking to expand outside of that model and work with self-pay clients. Like that's what happens in my practice, Growing Self. We're not in network with any insurance companies, and people are coming in not for clinical mental health treatment, but because they really want to do effective evidence-based growth work to create different outcomes in their lives, to get support through a difficult life transition, to figure out their career, to figure out a more congruent life that helps them attain their definition of happiness, to improve their relationship. And so this is non-clinical work. This is not medically necessary treatment. Health insurance wouldn't apply anyway. That's what I specialize in. That is why I became a board-certified coach, and that is why I teach coaching strategies and evidence-based coaching to support therapists in becoming certified as coaches, because that's a crucially important model for clinicians hoping to be not just successful, but effective in this space. However, in this space, I will just tell you straight up that therapists now have a new problem, because without being embedded in behavioral health care, without having client referrals come to you from a health insurance company, without having somebody else pay for your client sessions, the new problem is that you need to have a very well-developed marketing system that helps clients know who you are, understand the value of working with you, help them understand why it is worth it to them to pay out of pocket to work with you, and help them understand the difference between, AKA therapy that is medically necessary treatment versus maybe the type of work that they really want to do. That is a whole communication system. I mean, my practice is in a good place now. My practice supports over 50 clinicians at any one time in doing that kind of work and maintaining full caseloads. But y'all, that took me the better part of, I've been doing this for 20 years. So it was easily 10, 12 years of a lot of hard work to develop the system before it could support multiple therapists, certainly. So this is something that is challenging to do. And so, it is understandable, therefore, why therapists like Sarah, maybe like you, who are outside of this model and outside of the insurance payer system, feel anxiety about connecting with and then keeping clients. And so this type of performance anxiety can show up in a lot of ways. So, Sarah was vulnerable to taking clients that reached out to her that were kind of outside the scope of her practice. She was hoping that her general skills would be enough, but it was sort of a stretch because she wanted and needed new clients. Additionally, Sarah made some other mistakes, particularly around holding on to clients too long. Sarah had anxiety, and that prevented her from cutting people loose after they had legitimately attained their goals, or maybe plateaued for an extended period of time. They came in for treatment of major depressive disorder, and they're in a much better place. which is great, but instead of ending the relationship, which is the right thing to do, I mean, it says very clearly in our code of ethics is that we can't create and maintain dependency in our relationships. It was hard for Sarah because it's not just the fact that she enjoyed the relationship with these clients and liked talking with them week after week, but also the money and the impact on her income in the reality that it, wasn't always a sure thing that she would have new clients coming in the door. So that can be an ethical issue for sure. Another interesting thing that would happen to Sarah when her anxiety was like peak, and she was having a lot of performance anxiety, really worried that she was doing a good job. And I will just tell you, so Sarah is someone that I knew who was a therapist who was stepping into the coaching realm, which is becoming increasingly common. I mean, a lot of therapists are putting "and coach" after their professional title to meet the demands of this modern age. I mean, we have a lot of people who are showing up not needing behavioral health care. They are wanting growth and goals, and they're looking for coaching. So therapists will say, "and coach," oftentimes without being trained or credentialed in coaching, because, hey, if Mel Robbins can do it, why can't I? And, you're not wrong. But the problem is that for therapists, it's actually very different. We have different regulations. We're under regulatory scrutiny from state licensing boards. We have to handle this differently than just somebody calling themselves a coach does. And so when Sarah started getting into coaching, she had all this performance anxiety coming up, as well as a lot of anxiety about the differences between coaching and therapy. She would be working with a client and air quote coaching, but then she would start to be like, oh no, we're talking about their dad, they're getting emotional. Is this therapy? What am I doing? I'm going to do it wrong. Black helicopters are going to come for me. I'm going to lose my license, like all these things. And so then what that would lead her to do is actually refer clients out really impulsively. So, she would have a session with a client who would start to cry and like talk about her dad. And then Sarah would be like, oh God. And then, send an email to that client the next day being like, I'm so sorry, I can't see you anymore because this is therapy, not coaching. So here's some referrals to other providers on Psychology Today. Godspeed. And that is not okay. That is like abandonment. It confused her clients. It hurt them. And it was also like, that is not how we should roll. So there was a lot there that was coming out of her anxiety. And actually, side note, because this is such a thing that therapists, particularly when they're dipping their toes into coaching, are so routinely anxious about, I did a free training on this topic called Think You're Coaching? 8 Red Flags You're Actually Doing Therapy, to help clinicians get visibility into this. This is a free training. I am a continuing education provider, by the way, and this is such an important development issue for clinicians that I am awarding 1 continuing education credit hour for attendance in this training. So if you would like to take this totally free, come to my website, growingself.com, come to the For Therapists section of the website, and you'll see this and other free educational trainings that I offer for therapists like us that award continuing education credit. So you'll watch the training, pass a participation assessment to confirm attendance and that the learning objectives were achieved, and then we'll email you a CEU certificate that you can use to when it's time to renew your license. And if you would ever like to, you can also do these with me live. I'm going to be doing these every month. The best way to get in touch or to keep an eye on when those are happening is to connect with me on LinkedIn. Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby on LinkedIn. I will be sure to let you know when one of these is coming up. And you can also come to growingself.com/therapists or the therapist section and just sign up for my newsletter. So you'll get updates on new podcast episodes that I have coming out. But also if there are free trainings like this, I'll just send you a little email and then you can decide if it's a topic that you're interested in. So anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. Coming back, the last thing that Sarah was doing that was actually deeply, deeply problematic and also heartbreaking to witness, but also very common, is that without even realizing it, Sarah was doing this thing with clients where she was actually making the clients feel like they were responsible for how Sarah felt. Isn't that awful? But it's true, it happens. And so when clients didn't improve, didn't get better, it would make Sarah feel bad. She would get very self-critical. She would blame herself. Sometimes she would say self-deprecating things about her abilities as a therapist to her clients, which did not lead them to feel confident in her ability to help them. But also, I think, empathetic clients, who are in a relationship with Sarah. Like, yes, it's a professional relationship, but it is a real relationship. Just like we care about our clients, at least to a degree, many of them also care about us, right? And so particularly these kinds of clients, like they would start to take on some of Sarah's energy around this, even if she wasn't saying it out loud, saying like, I need you to get better and to benefit from working with me so that I feel better about my own like self as a therapist. But they would pick up on that. And so they would perform. They would perform getting better for Sarah, or they would hide. They might even stop being honest. Sarah's like, so how's this going for you? They'd be like, oh, it's great. It's not always great. Like, these relationships, they require honesty. We need clients to be able to say, I didn't like that. This session, this was not as good for me as some of the other sessions where I really liked it when we did XYZ a couple sessions ago. Can we do more of that? Like, that is the kind of relationship that we need to be having with our clients. And they need to feel like it's fantastic to be giving you and me authentic feedback, especially when they're not loving it. Because if clients can't do that, what are their choices to either, perpetuate this relationship that's not always working for them without our knowing it and being able to take action to make it better, or they just ghost, right? So we can't get into that. And I also just want you to tell you, like, this is not theoretical. This stuff happens. It happens in counseling rooms all the time. Right? Maybe you've been Sarah from time to time. I have certainly been Sarah from time to time. And this is not something to feel ashamed about or bad about or like beating yourself up that this is happening. This is part of it. There is light and dark in all things. Part of being conscientious, caring, and wanting to do a good job is also having feelings of anxiety or when there's indications maybe we're not always doing a good job. And so it's not to try to eradicate this. It's to figure out how to manage it and use it effectively. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to be talking about very specific new things that you can do, mindsets, strategies that will help you manage this performance anxiety and wrangle it. Feel better, and also not let it impact your work. Talking about that right after the break. This episode is brought to you by the Coaching Certification for Therapists at Growing Self. Yes, I train therapists to coach ethically and effectively and in alignment with attainment of the board certified coaching credential. This is the coaching credential for therapists. It is issued by the NBCC, National Board of Certified Counselors, Educational Wing, the Center for Credentialing and Education. This program awards you between 30 and 50 continuing education credit hours for your licensure renewal, but more importantly, it gives you a deep dive into the professional development factors that contribute to being a genuinely effective therapist who coaches with excellence. It provides a deep dive into your self-awareness, your blind spots, and it's all about helping you not just learn the art and science of evidence-based coaching psychology, but it's designed to help you evolve into the next version of your professional self. In this new chapter, you design a new trajectory, the type of clients you see, the type of practice you have, and also the type of professional you are. If this sounds exciting to you, you can learn more on my website, growingself.com. Welcome back. Okay, so we just talked about the impact of unregulated performance anxiety on clinicians and how it leads to overfunctioning, taking on too much responsibility. It can lead to underfunctioning, getting paralyzed from fear of saying they're doing the wrong thing. It can also lead to over-identifying and, most importantly, overreacting. And none of these are good. All of these take the focus off our clients and puts it on us in a way that is not helpful for anyone. And so here are some things that we need to put into practice in order to manage this effectively and well. So here are a few steps that I always recommend to my supervisees at Growing Self, and I hope that you can find at least one takeaway here, one thing that you can start practicing and doing differently that will help you get a handle on this too. This all starts with being honest. Doing some post-session journaling, particularly if you notice yourself having some feelings that may not actually feel like anxiety, but almost like a post-session replay, right? Like things that you're thinking about. And some journaling questions that you might haul out in these moments are questions like, where am I taking responsibility that isn't mine? That's always a good one. But also, what is it about the way I am showing up in this therapeutic relationship is contributing to the outcomes that I'm experiencing with my clients? This is a hard one. There, feelings around that, but whew, man, this is so valuable. I mean, of all the questions that I routinely ask myself, honestly, in any role in my life, as a therapist, as a coach, as a boss, as a clinical supervisor, what is it about my leadership, about my performance that is leading to this, and not in a critical way, in a growth-oriented way, in order to get some visibility into just the systemic relationship between what are my clients doing, how am I feeling about this, and then what am I doing in response that's either making this better or worse. This is a very important question. Another thing that is extremely important and that will always lead us back to safety is to have a ton of clarity about our theoretical orientation, our theory of change, the model that we use, and be very faithful to this. Stop bouncing around with interventions. Stop like trying a whole bunch of different things, throwing spaghetti at the wall. Nope, that cannot be how this works. We need to have a clear conceptualization and then tie that to a plan. And this is true for clinical mental health treatment. And this is also true for growth-oriented coaching. Without that, we're going to be chasing the shiny ideas and bouncing around from session to session, particularly when we start to feel anxious. And this is to the detriment of our clients. So if you don't have clarity around this is my primary theoretical orientation, this is how I understand difficulty, the origin of difficulty in my clients, this is what my theoretical orientation tells me needs to happen in order for clients to heal and or grow, go back to the basics. Haul out some of your books. What resonates from you? You were probably, hopefully, challenged to do this in counseling school or with a good clinical supervisor, right? But, particularly if you went to a program that did not require this, or if your clinical supervision was, not in alignment with this, you need to do this as a full functioning professional, whether or not you're licensed. So think about it. What is the population that I'm seeking to serve? What is the model that has the most evidence around being the most appropriate to help people with that? And then how am I in terms of my ability to deliver that model effectively and with confidence on a scale of 1 to 10? And we're not here to beat you up. It is to say, okay, here's my performance improvement plan. Because, on the one side, we need to manage performance anxiety that is doing weird things between us and our clients. And also, imposter syndrome is a thing. And imposter syndrome, I think, is not believing that you are competent when you actually are competent. And there is another type of performance anxiety that we actually need to listen to, which is that maybe I don't know everything about everything. Maybe I do have something to learn. Maybe sometimes I am feeling anxious with clients because maybe I am practicing outside the scope of my competence a little bit. Or maybe I have come to the limits of what I am really secure in knowing how to do. And that is okay. That is good. Part of being an effective therapist is recognizing that and getting involved in additional training, certification, competency development throughout the lifespan of your career. That is just what good therapists do. And when we're like, am I doing this right with clients? That's worth figuring out, I might not be using the model that's really most appropriate for this client. Maybe I need to read up on this or consult, right? Like, this is a good thing. So have a model, have a framework, but also be using your anxiety to think about where you can grow. Additionally, I think that it can be a fantastic practice to give yourself enough time between sessions to do a little bit of immediate post-session debriefing with yourself. So hopefully you are maintaining enough time between sessions to do your case notes really quick. And also perhaps as part of this practice, you have just Google Doc open, and not that we're putting a ton of confidential information about the specific clients in there, but for your own journaling, like, what was going on for me in this session? How was I feeling in this session? Did I have any moments where I was sort of feeling anxious or reactive? And if I was, how did that impact what I was doing? I think that that's really important. And then similarly, it is critically important for all therapists, including me, to have some kind of reflective space that is devoted to our well-being. And this could be supervision, certainly if you're pre-licensed. Also, peer consultation, to be part of a professional consultation group with other therapists that you have a close relationship with, who know you, where you can talk about cases in an authentic and vulnerable way and give and get feedback. I mean, that is so important. Or a more structured professional growth program, post-licensure mentorship, a case consultation partner. I mean, this is really important. Therapists can often, particularly in private practice, wind up becoming quite isolated professionally, and isolated therapists are at risk. So if this is true for you, it's really important that you build the village that you can receive support from, but also give support to. I mean, just beautiful reciprocal relationships with other therapists that help you. Okay, so I hope that these ideas and this topic, one, gives you visibility into performance anxiety, whether or not it's a thing for you, how it might be impacting you, and then also a few specific takeaways for things that you can do to help with this. And of course, developing specific competencies can also go a long way into reducing anxiety, because you really do know what you're doing with specific clients. And there are all kinds of training programs to help you with that, depending on your population, the presenting issue that your niche is built around, and if your current situation or if your goal is to do more work with non-clinical clients who are not showing up for treatment, but would really like your support in growing, developing themselves, creating different outcomes in their life. The most effective modality for that is evidence-based coaching psychology. And as I mentioned, I teach a certification program that is specifically for therapists to learn coaching competencies and attain the BCC or Board Certified Coaching credential. So if you would like to learn more about that, you are invited to come to my website, growingself.com, tap on the For Therapists section, learn all about it. And if you would like to talk about this and how it may or may not be in alignment with your long-term professional goals, I am happy to set up a meeting with you, just to visit with you. We can talk about where you are in your career, where you want to be, and whether or not coaching certification could help you get there. And beyond that, let's stay connected. I always love hearing about what's going on with you in your life and your career. And the best way to do that is to connect with me on LinkedIn. Track me down, Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby on LinkedIn. I'm usually fighting with somebody on LinkedIn about something, oftentimes self-proclaimed life coaches who are operating as fake therapists. Oh man, there's been a lot of spicy conversation about that one on LinkedIn lately. So if you'd like to be part of that, come connect with me, or just connect with me to say hi and eat your popcorn. All right, you guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll be back in touch next week with another episode of Love, Happiness, and Success for Therapists.